Hi, Dr. Rob.
Hello, Ms. Tammy. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Isn't that surprising?
It is. Yay, Dr. Rob is good.
No, well,
Okay.
it's still summer. Summer hasn't quite ended, so I'm quite excited about that. I'm not a fan of the short days and the cool weather, so I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it remaining like this for a while.
There you go. There you
So,
go.
Tammy, what do you have to bring to us tonight?
Well, we have some things, but we just before this started, we were talking about you've had some interesting consultations. So you were going to talk a tiny bit about that.
Absolutely. So I don't know that everyone's aware of this or whether it matters to you or not, but I do see probably a couple or two a week when they are really struggling with what do we do next and how do we do it and as a couple, can we go forward? How do we go forward? What next steps? I usually end up talking to them for a couple of hours and then I make recommendations and then they do what they want to do. They can follow them, they can not follow them. I will often go back to Tammy and say, hey, Tammy, I think they need a therapist, or maybe they need to know about treatment, or there's this book I think they should read. And then we go back and we provide them with resources. So, for people who want to talk to me directly, that is a way to do it. And you get a couple hours of my time, probably a little more than Tammy would like, because I always go over. But but I get to care about these people and love on them, and it's hard not to. Tam, I was going to say to you, I when I do consults, I kind of meet a couple when they're in some of the most pain that they've been in as a couple, and so for me to be able to give some guidance and use my history to help them is a gift to me. So anyway, I do them, and I do
Well,
them
I'm
regularly.
tearing up because completely different. Like this is like apples to oranges, but I do 25 or 50-minute support sessions. And my point with that is like I care about these people. Like, I see them and I feel like I want to encourage them. Look, you can do this too, and you can get, here's some resources for help. So again, completely different. You got Dr. Rob for 2 hours, or you've got support sessions for 25 or 50 minutes with myself, Scott, or Jason. But the one thing about them is they're all looking to give you different layers of support, including our drop-in groups. You're here on a webinar, work groups. We have lots of
Other people.
resources. We're not just not just one thing. And Dr. Rob, we have a residential treatment program. It is life changing. I just posted two more testimonials, on our website, from people. One was from a partner and one was from, someone who'd been through the program. And like, again, tears to my eyes, these people's lives are transformed. So the work that Dr. Rob created and that the entire team, it's a team, provides, for clients, it really can help things shift in a positive direction. So
Well, interesting. I just
all of
want to
it.
say something
Go
more
ahead.
about consults, which is
Mhm.
it's not unusual for a female spouse to invite, drag her sex addict husband or partner to a consult. And what's interesting to me is that it's not, I'm pretty tough on people. I call it as I see them. And it's been interesting to me, and I'll say to you, spouses, that sometimes I'm very clear with an addict what they need to do, whatever that is, whatever they need to do. And then I find a spouse will write and call and say, oh, well, you're being too hard on him, or maybe that's not the right choice, or we're going to do something else. And I just think it's hard for me to see those of you who are so wounded by the addict, but also decide that your love for them and your value and appreciation for them turns into, well, I want them to do what makes them feel comfortable. Addicts feel comfortable when they're acting out. And the best friend of any addict, and Tammy will agree with this, is the person who's going to tell them a truth. And as I say to all my consults, you may not like me by the end of it, but you will hear things that are true whether you like it or not. So anyway, I just encourage you spouses to be able to hold on to yourselves and know what's right for you. Doesn't mean you have to punish us. It does mean that you need to stand your ground and not give into our poor me, and that's so hard, and all that crap that we do. Anyway,
So I'm going to tag on to what you just said, because
sure.
when I hear when I get lots of calls. I'm really get lots of calls and emails. And I hear from a spouse who is saying, "Oh, he really likes his therapist, but he's not making any progress." And what I hear is somebody who likes their therapist who is not holding them accountable. So just like you're talking about with, we need some truth. We need we need someone to hold up a mirror and help us, find a different path, because otherwise we'll just keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Well, I just want to respond to that, therapy is not necessarily meant to call people out and to challenge them and confront them. Most therapists are more trained to be supportive and nurturing and really follow you rather than us taking control. But that's not true when someone has an addiction or alcohol or drugs, or when it's a behavior. The rules say that we have to kind of be more like a doctor and say, boy, you've got this problem now. I think you need to do this and this and this. And the addicts do not like that. Like, well, my therapist is really warm and fuzzy and they're really supportive and you make me feel uncomfortable. It's like, yeah, well, look what you're doing. That's
Yeah,
uncomfortable. So anyway,
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
mean to dismiss anyone's work. I just want to say to you, spouses, when you start to feel sympathy and empathy for the person who has ruined the life that you thought you had, maybe it's okay to sit in your anger and let them do things that are uncomfortable. And by the way, one more thing, I know as an addict that I will always pick the right people to tell me what I want to hear. If I want to hear, well, this is okay and that's not okay, I'm going to go around and find the people who will validate it, whether it's good for me or not. And the people are really my friends who will tell me what is true, whether I want to hear it or not. And that's why we're here.
yeah. Well, and actually, the people that hold me, if I'm questioning something, I reach out to the people who are going to call it straight. I don't need to be placated. So, okay, Dr. Rob, the first question I put in the answer. Could you please have Dr. Weiss comment on restorative redemption versus punitive redemption? My wife and I listened to a podcast offered by Wee Tonglin concerning this.
Um, I believe that punishment causes shame. It causes hopelessness. Punishment teaches someone often, I don't want to talk about this, or I don't want them to find out anymore, so I'm going to keep lying and hiding. And most of all, in terms of the issues that I deal with, punishment is rarely creates change. What punishment does, at least in the short term, is it might make someone make a lot of apologies, ask for forgiveness. But this is mental illness. I mean, in case you think that addiction is just someone in a bad mood or someone who doesn't love you, or this is a profound emotional problem. There's something wrong with the people who are addicts, and they need support and direction and consistency. And you can be as angry as you need to be, and we encourage you to go to groups and read. No one wants to take your anger away. But if you expect change to occur because you're throwing somebody to the curb rather than saying, I freaking hate you and I hope you get well, rather than, punitive, I never see addicts respond to being punished. I see addicts respond to a crisis and then saying, is there a different way I can live? And restorative to me, and I think, aren't we? Anyway, I'm not going to go into sorry, my head went somewhere else. I believe that we are not bad people. I absolutely, without question, 98% of us addicts are not bad people. And what I mean by that is it is not our intention to go hurt you. It is not our intention to ruin our lives. It is not our intention to ignore our kids. That is the fallout, the consequence of our craziness. And so when you're punishing, it's kind of like, you're a bad person and you need to be punished and learn how bad you are. We already know, once we see your face and realize what we've done, how problematic our behavior's been. The question is, do we want to heal or not? And so shaming, blaming, trust me, most addicts have been caught already hate themselves. They already think they're terrible people. And to be honest, in the treatment center, that's not helpful. Because for me to say, I'm awful, I'm terrible, I can't believe I did this, what kind of man am I, is all about me. It's still about me. And restorative has something to do with empathy, with my beginning to see how you've been wounded, how you've been hurt. And if you become my judge and jury, then you're not my spouse. And I know that there are therapists who have actually worked for me who have a stance that we are sex offenders, that we are malicious, that we are bad people, that we're going to hurt other people. I don't believe that. It may be true, There are some, as we say, that are sicker than others, and some that are unable to heal. But for the most part, even if we make mistakes, I believe in redemption. You know, my life, if you saw it 40 years ago, 30 years ago, if you saw how Tammy was living, no offense, when she was in her addictions, you know, I don't think
True.
anyone would have thought well of us then either. But intact underneath the addiction is a, well, let me just say my best example, which is I say this all the time. I have worked with men who were heroin addicts. And in their addiction, they took money out of their kids' college fund or all of it in order to be able to go and buy drugs. But sober and working on themselves, they would work 3 jobs to put that money back. It's not about being amoral or bad. It's about being deeply troubled. And I was saying this to a woman the other day, and then today, and then I'll stop. It is very hard for a spouse, incredibly hard, if not impossible, to not take this personally. You know, it is the hardest thing in the world because it has been done to your beliefs, to your commitments, to your promises. If I were a drunk, you wouldn't say to the same degree, um, uh, they drank to do this to me. They drank to hurt me. They drank, I might hurt you, I might let you down, but my drinking is my problem. And as a effect of my drinking, as a consequence, you got hurt or in trouble, but you probably wouldn't say you drank to hurt me. Even with a compulsive gambler, you probably wouldn't say you gambled to hurt us. You'd probably say, oh, you're so out of control and look what you did. It is really the same with sex addiction. I am not acting out to hurt you, even though that is the collateral damage. I am acting out because I am deeply troubled and I am really struggling. And there may be a chance, maybe, that I can heal one day at a time. So, punitive, I don't even think, one more thing, oxymoron, 2 words
That,
that don't go
yes,
together,
that's what I was thinking.
punitive and redemption. Go ahead, Tammy, you go
Well,
there.
that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, I don't know how you can put punitive and redemption or reparation or any of those things together because punitive is shaming, hurtful. You are bad, but with restorative, I mean, who doesn't want things restored? Or, many people say, I want to rebuild trust. And I'm like, you're probably building trust because there is probably an element where there never was trust on some level. So why would you not want things to be, in a better way rather than just always in the shame? I can hear when people are in a certain, are hearing those messages because they call and they'll say, I'm the offender, I'm the abuser. And I'll say, offender, have you done legally offensive
Right.
behaviors? Rape. I mean, there are certain things that are absolutely categorized as a legal offender. Otherwise it's wow, in my brokenness, I offended somebody, I hurt somebody, I have abused someone, but it's my behavior, not me with a label. Why would I even try if I'm just, there's no hope if I am, an abuser, offender, something like that. So that's my.
And I want to say one more thing. I haven't spent 32 years of my professional life writing books and doing this for free and working with people like Tammy if I just thought it was hopeless. If it was hopeless, why be on here? If I'm a bad person, I cannot fix bad people. I can fix broken people. And if someone is seeking to heal and they are committed and they're motivated, healing is available. I absolutely believe that.
Me
So
too. Okay, next question. Betrayed partner, married 42 years. Discovery was 2 years ago, and full therapeutic disclosure was 5 months later. SA husband is doing all of the recommended recovery work. However, we are on our third round of lies and of omission. With this one, he didn't tell me that his daily 12-step Zoom meetings are co-ed. He's doing 90 meetings in 90 days because of the second discovery of lies of omission. We had previously agreed when he attended AA meetings that they would be male only, so he knew this was crossing the line. He also admitted to feeling a sense of exhilaration that there were female sex addicts in attendance. He apologized again and says he's committed to his recovery and to me, but I'm weary of the dishonesty. Is this behavior typical of an addict? Would you call it a slip or a relapse? I'm an intelligent, reasonable person and will talk through any struggles of his with understanding, but I'm running out of hope for true intimacy and recovery in our relationship. Thanks for
so
sharing this.
addicts lie. even when the lies are minor, we have a lot of fear that we're going to get in trouble, that we're going to be seen a certain way. We lie. I don't know what your husband's plan is, what his sobriety is. But if it were me and I was setting sobriety, I would not call this a slip or a relapse. Because unless I have had sex with someone, called an ex-affair partner, gone to a massage parlor, in order for it to be a slip or relapse in my world, it has to be concrete sexual behavior. So to me, this is a huge warning sign. This is oh my God, I shouldn't be doing this. I know I shouldn't be doing this. And if I keep doing this, it's going to lead to my bottom line behavior. So, a couple of things. I'm really thrilled that your husband's doing all the recommended work, but it's early. 5 months is not solid,
No, it's
committed.
3 years, and then they did 5 months. They did
Oh,
a
I see.
disclosure post, so it's been
Yeah.
all 2.5 years.
So
So
lies of omission, I can almost guarantee you that's going to happen. The thing is, and I would tell you that I would make this agreement with your husband, and I tell this to the clients. You may lie to me. You may be dishonest to me. You may avoid telling me something. I expect that. That's who you are. That's part of your illness. But, and I would say this to every spouse, my expectation, if I'm talking to the addict, is that within 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever boundary you set, you are going to come back to me and tell me the truth. I don't have to find it. I don't have to discover it. I don't have to hear about it, that you will tell me the truth. And so while in the moment, and depending on the client's issues and where they come from in their history, if in the moment they lie, I expect that. That's part of the illness. People lie, and it takes them a long time to not lie about simple things like taking out the garbage or, we lie. But if you can begin to trust that we will come back to you and tell you the truth, that's what matters. Because before, we would lie and not say anything. So I can only imagine how scary it is when you start to see lies again and lies around getting excited about looking an image or whatever that is. But that doesn't mean that someone is going down the rocky road to having slips and relapse. It does mean they're playing the game, and if they keep playing it, they're going to be in trouble. And that would be my concern. Not is it a slip, is it a relapse? But if you're doing this, number one, what else are you doing? And number two, it doesn't tell me that you're going down the right road. Those are the things I'd be concerned about. Not necessarily that he omitted something or whatever. What I'd be concerned about is you're not doing things that are leading you in the right direction, and you know that you're not. It got you excited. You were interested. You were lying about it. Every addict should know lying, keeping secrets, and doing things that aren't good for me are on the way to destroying everything. So again, my bigger concern is that not that he apologized, but that he promised a commitment to recovery, but that he's accountable to someone, and that he's going to get out of these co-ed meetings because there's no reason for him to be there. Yeah, so I encourage you to use your intelligent, reasonable self and understand that this is a process. And if he has a serious, meaningful slip, like he goes to meet one of those women or gets one-on-one with them or stuff like that, then I would be very concerned. So,
or start texting with them, etc. I
yeah,
mean, like, yeah, that would, but yeah, I was going to tag on, so I mean, I would ask him not to even bother apologizing. The words are hollow. It's what are your actions?
right,
What are you going to do differently? Show me with your actions that you're doing something differently. Yeah, promises. I mean, like those are hollow. Sorry is hollow. Action is different. I'm going to point out what are your healthy, as you said, I'm an intelligent person. What are you doing to take care of you? And often it is, when you show me that you are not trustworthy, then I'm going to pull myself in, and, there's going to be a bigger
right,
gap. I vision us being together, and I really want that. But every time, this happens, and you don't show
right.
up in a way, and I suspect you had discovery of this stuff, that he didn't come to you and said, oh, by the way, I'm going to, co-ed meetings, so again, that fractures, what delicate levels of trust that, could be being built. So, and I would also, he got excited about that. So I think it's always interesting for us as addicts to explore, what am I getting out of lying? Because there's always a benefit. And if it's, I'm afraid of your reaction, I want to keep the, the excitement, I mean, whatever it is, but that would be work for him to do with his qualified professional, like, what am I getting? And help me think it through before I decide to lie. Like, is the end result going to be worth this momentary, lie? So,
And I do see something good in here, even though it might be difficult for you to see. I would never want to tell you that I felt a sense of exhilaration. I would just never want to tell you that. I would want to say to you, well, yeah, I went in those rooms, but nothing distracted me. The fact that he actually told you that he shouldn't be doing this, and part of the reason he knows he shouldn't be is because he did get excited about it. I think that at least, this is hard for you spouses, at least he is willing to tell you that. But the bottom line that he needs to hear is this throws everything out the window. The trust you started to build, the belief, it doesn't matter whether you actually had a slip or not. The truth is, once we start lying, you assume we're back to everything because there is no trust. And so what he doesn't understand is he's been reset to zero in terms of his trustworthiness in your eyes. And it's going to take a while for him to earn that back. So I'm sorry that happened. Oh, one more thing. I would suggest that he write out all the meetings he's to go to, and you can see that everyone he's going to, whatever the meeting is men only, because he has now broken your trust, and now he gets to show you and say, these are the ones I'm going to. And when you walk by that computer, that better be the meeting that he's in, because he doesn't get a second chance. So.
a real quick story. When AA first started, the women were all sitting, Al-Anon actually started because the women were all sitting outside because they drove the men to the meetings. And then all of a sudden the wives were asked to come into the kitchen and they had their own little meeting. So, like, you don't want to have to get to that. And so I really hope that he steps up and is sharing with you more truthfully. But healthy boundaries for you. Take care of you. Okay, the next one, Dr. Rob. I'm the betrayed partner. I now live separate and have requested no contact. However, we would like to continue to get along if possible. Otherwise, the war is too stressful. He is not respecting my boundaries. He is following me, stalking me, and trying every possible second to be with me. What can I do? I need space because it affects my health. He is not honoring it.
Why don't you start with this one, Tammy?
This would be, there's restraining orders, like if he's stalking you, that's, again, we go back to the legal stuff. I've asked this person to stay away from me. I've asked for no contact. You can contact, and I don't know the legal ins and outs, but, I would contact the police department or an attorney or whatever. And I need this separation. If you can work with a qualified professional to have it a mediation of this, say, here's my boundaries, he's not following them. If you continue to do this, I'm going to get a restraining order against whatever, but for your safety, do what you need to do, because when somebody's exhibiting those kind of behaviors, the last thing you want it to do is escalate. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So,
well, and I wanted to add to that, you might give an inch, which is, I will see you in therapy once a week or once every other week. We can sit down and talk in therapy, and that's with someone else there, when you can set the boundary of, and outside of this, I don't want to see you, I don't want to talk to you. And then when you come back and it's continuing, I mean, I agree with Tammy, this is acting out. You're not the one to be mistrusted, and you're not going to fix his problem. He's either running after you to make sure you don't leave, or that you haven't found out things he doesn't want you to find out, or he's crazy and he thinks you're the one who's cheating. I mean, who knows? But if your boundaries are not being respected, it's scary to me. And, I agree with Tammy. I don't know if you're married, but I would want to see an attorney and say, I don't know if I can stay married if this behavior continues. I certainly think you could sit down with a therapist who knows what they're doing and say, he's not respecting my boundaries and he doesn't know that he's going to lose everything. How do we do that together with you here? But under no circumstances is this in any way acceptable. Under any circumstances. Stalking, not okay. So I
So
hope you change the locks so that he can't
yeah.
get in.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's good. Yeah, and if you're walking out to your car, be really careful. I mean, be aware of your situation at all times. So have your
And
cell phone
since you
ready.
said,
So
I want to get along if possible, great. Then invite someone in to support the two of you so that you can find healthy ways to, to do that. Maybe you want to have a cup of coffee with him once a week, but you don't want any other contact. I don't know, but whatever you want now is not being respected, and that's really violating.
mhm.
So anyway, I don't like that one.
No. Okay, the next one is a two-parter. Dr. Rob, what is your opinion on celibacy with a spouse during treatment? My SA husband started an 8-week IOP, and the CSAT there recommended he be abstinent, including with me during the full 8 weeks. His previous CSAT believed that sex with a spouse was okay as long as both partners felt safe and willing. I'm confused at the two different views and was hoping you could provide some more clarity. As the betrayed spouse, sometimes I feel close enough to my partner to engage in sex, and other times when he's in active addiction, I don't feel comfortable and do not engage. I want him to succeed in the program. So if abstinence is important, I'm willing to do so. I just am not quite prepared for that expectation.
Well, can I be completely and truly honest, Tammy?
Please.
This is frustrating to me because I run a treatment program and I think I do extraordinary work and I don't think it gets much better. And so what you're asking me personally to say is, well, he went to a program other than yours and he's not working with you. And you don't know his therapist who sent him to that other place or whatever it is. But can you help me figure out based on the situation? And honestly, my heart says, I want to help you. I want to support you. But you put yourself in these circumstances. You chose these people. Here you are asking for our help, my help, and he's going to other programs. So it makes it, and I'm being completely dead honest. I don't care whether you come to us or not. That's your choice. But to go to another program and then come to me and say, gee, are they doing what I think they should be doing? That really frustrates me because that's their job to figure out. So I'm going to be really, really honest with you. I think you need to go back to those people. And, I could give you a pat answer, but the truth is I don't know you, I don't know him, and as Tammy would say, you have qualified professionals. You can say, hey, CSAT, hey, person who's running the IOP, I want you to talk to each other and the two of you decide what is best for us. I do have opinions on this and I have beliefs on this, but you have not hired me or asked me or engaged with me in a way you have done that with other people. So I think, and with all due respect, nothing to do with me, you should have the people you're paying talk to each other and come up with a solution, because whatever I say in an anonymous way, not knowing you or your experience, is not going to resolve. And by the way, your CSAT's going to say, well, who cares whether that Dr. Weiss said that, or the people in the IRP are going to say, well, you didn't send him to his program, so how to come? It's not going to look good for me. So I would say to you, under these circumstances, go back to the people that you're paying and put them together and have them figure out what is best for you and your family. And Tammy, maybe I'm being harsh. If you
No,
want
no,
to
no.
respond,
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, we're not getting in the middle of this one, but I also think,
right?
make sure that your betrayed partner, we have a family specialist at our program, so make sure the person that is supporting you at the program, that would be the discussion to have with their person that is supporting you as part of the program. I would, that's who I would work through. Not be that would be my suggestion, but anyway, so I'm with you. Okay, next one, Dr. Rob. What are some appropriate and achievable for the betrayed partner boundaries to establish in the immediate days and weeks between discovery and getting the SAPA in a solid treatment program? Kicking the partner out feels too terrifying. And at the same time, there needs to be some psychological and physical boundaries just to get some level of function day over day. That's a great question.
Well, and you get asked this question all the time, so I'm going to answer briefly and kind of defer to you. But um, I say this all the time. Why would you sleep with someone you don't trust? And why would you have sex with someone you don't trust? I talked to a spouse today who's having sex with her addict partner because she thinks if she has a lot of sex with him, then maybe he won't go out and do what he's doing, or maybe he'll realize how much he loves her. And, that's not taking care of herself. That's more focusing on whether her decisions will affect him or won't affect him. So, number one, your decisions have to be for you and 100% for you. Second of all, I think sleeping with in the same bed someone who has violated and betrayed you in this way would maybe comfort me, but would also feel like I'm violating myself. And so I do think I can't give you all the answers, but I would maybe even write down a piece of paper. What are the things that would make me feel safe for me? And what are the things that I would be doing to punish, to demand, because you're right, your job is to not, uh, what did I want to say? Your job is not to say, well, I'm going to call a lawyer unless you do this or that, or your job is not to, um, set a boundary in order to be punitive or to get that person to do whatever you want them to do. Boundaries are for you. So what makes you feel safe? Do you want to sit around the dinner table with you and your family with him there? Or would you say, I'd rather, you know, us have dinner together and you get on with your meeting or something? Would it feel good to you to say, I want to see you in 5 meetings a week? That will make me feel safe. Is it going to feel good to you if you sit down with a therapist? I don't know what is good for you, but I do think you can think about what makes me feel safe and comfortable versus what am I doing to try to have some effect on who he is and what he's doing, because that's not a boundary. That's not a boundary. So I'm glad you're asking the question. Um, I don't know if you can kick him or her out of the house, but you can certainly kick them out of your bed. You can kick them out of dinner. You can kick them around out of staying with the family when you're all enjoying something. If that doesn't feel comfortable to you, then that's what you need to do. Tammy, it's a great question. It
Yeah,
really
yeah,
is.
no, and I talk about healthy boundaries. Probably people are sick of hearing me talk about healthy boundaries, but but the flip side of it is I hear partners all the time going, "Well, I have a hard time holding those boundaries." And I'm like, "They're for your safety. They are for you. They are not punishment or control." Like Dr. Rob said, having sex with somebody just to, hopefully that'll make him not do it. That's not going to make him not act out. He can still act out. Trust me. So it's one of those, what do you need for your safety? I love that you said, Dr. Rob, write them down. And I find that that's the most helpful, and, what is it I'm seeking? Like with a physical one, if you're saying, he can sleep in the other room, or I need to. I've had partners where he's violated our bedroom. I'm going to sleep in the other room. So I'm whatever you need from that physical standpoint. What am I looking for with it? How is it providing my safety? And is it just punishment to him? Like those are things to be unpacking. And you can talk to a qualified professional about this, or I mean, but like there's the betrayed partner drop-in groups, there's the support sessions, we talk about those kind of things. So there's lots of opportunities to kind of bounce them off. This would be one of those. I would really get some input from other people, because then you're clarifying the lens of like, is this enough for a physical boundary? Is this enough for a financial boundary? We have people all the time that are getting some forensic work done on the finances because there's been money taken out to pay for their acting out. That's important. So there's lots of different aspects to it, and looking at what do I need for my safety. That is really important for you. So I'm thrilled you're here. I'm sorry you have to be here, honestly, but on the other hand, I'm really glad you're here, because we really do work to provide resources, for healing, and for moving forward in a different way. And I started off, I can't remember if it was, I think before we hit the recording, but I added two more testimonials, recent testimonials from people, partner and from the person who's come to our program, and their lives are shifting and changing in a meaningful way, guess what? It brings connection, and that's what, the opposite of addiction is healthy attachment. That's what we're looking to do, not just punish people.
There
Ready
was
for the
one more
next
thing
one,
I
or do you
wanted to
have?
say
Okay, go
about
ahead,
this.
please.
Just a second. Um, Yeah, one of the things I respect, oh, I know what I wanted to say. If you're going to write things down, if you're going to decide what your boundaries are, please tell someone else. Because just like addicts, if I'm going to go to a meeting, I need to be accountable that someone's going to be there that I know, or that I've told someone that I'm going to be there. Accountability is the number one, I think one of the top 3 ways that addicts stay sober. And if you have trouble sticking with your boundaries because you're worried that it will lead back to acting out, or you're worried it's too difficult, or you really love them and you don't want to hurt the process, whatever your boundary is, tell someone else. Go to one of those weekly groups that we have that are free, and there are lots of them for spouses, and just say, these are the boundaries I've set. would one of you ladies give me your email address so that I can send them to you and I can commit to you that I will keep them. Just telling someone else what it is and what you're going to do means that in the moment you're not on your own. And by the way, if you want to break your boundary, you can write that person, say, hey, I wanted to break this boundary. What do you think? And then you're not alone with it. So, or bring it to a therapist.
Yes.
Boundaries can be shared.
Yes. I
Okay.
love that. Okay. Next question. My husband has been cheating and having romantic relationships since I've known him. He's ending 2 of them. And of course, they show up at my home to tell me everything.
Oh,
Oh, would he be a sex and love addict? Mm. I'm
uh,
putting on our website, and this is not the same as what we do for clients coming to our program, but we do have a little quick self-assessment. And I'm going to put a link to this, and he can take it, or you can probably take it for him because you know enough. And um, uh, feel free to email me, and I'll put my email address in here too, Tammy at seekingintegrity.com. But that's a very quick self test. The Dr. Rob mentioned at the top of the hour that we have expert consultations. He does an expert consultation with couples. That's a really, that's a really good way to identify what the issues are and, guide next steps. I hate that you've been dealing with this like forever, and he's ending 2 of them, and they show up like
right.
that is such a violation. So, so Dr.
Yeah,
Rob, what are your
well, I agree with the word violation because my concern is not honestly whether he's a sex addict or not. My concern is how could he let this happen to you? How could he let how do these people know where he lives? You
Oh
know,
gosh, yes.
have they been there and had sex in your home, in your bed? I mean, there's so many things that come up for me, but most of all is the disregard for what you were going. Do you have children? What would it be like to have one of these women show up when your kids are playing? Um, is he home when this happens? I mean, and by the way, some of the women I've worked with who do this, they do it for one reason only, which is maybe if I tell the wife, she'll leave him. Or maybe if I tell the wife, she will move away from him and then I can move toward him. Sometimes they tell you because they're so pissed and the two of you bond over what a jerk he is. But more often they're saying it to see if they can get a foot in the door. And so, I would also set a boundary about what are you going to do if one of them shows up? And I wouldn't open the door unless I said, why are you here? Who are you? Oh, did you want to tell me everything? Well, go talk to a friend. The problem is, of course, as a spouse, we want to know everything. So the question is for you, you know, are you willing to put yourself in a situation where you're going to continue to be abused like this? Why is your husband not taking any responsibility for protecting you? How do these women know where you live? Is there anyone at home, like a kid or a brother, or someone in your life who's also seeing this happen? And I think less concern at the moment on what his problem is and what to call it. I think if you took that sentence out and just told me the rest of it, I would be horrified for you. And that's what I'm more concerned about is your own sanity and the
and
abuse
safety?
and safety than I am what the heck he is or isn't. What I can tell you is he's an asshole. Excuse my language, Sammy. He's unkind and more motivated to get what he wants and doesn't give a shit how it plays out. And not just you. There are 2 other people plus you. That's 3. There isn't any regard for any of you. So I would stay away from this as far as I could.
Well,
How
and
you,
she
you
says he's ending 2 of them now, and I'm thinking, how many others are there
right,
that aren't ended yet? I
right.
mean, like this is, and please go get an STD test. Like
Yes.
we hear this all the time, and oh, he says they were no, and so
Well,
go
addicts,
ahead.
we lie to ourselves too. I remember HIV very well, and that was the beginning of my work in the field. And I always have guys come in and say, well, he seemed really nice. And I don't think he was sick and he
He
looked
was
really healthy.
clean.
So
Yeah.
of course he's clean. So he doesn't have HIV. And I'm like, you're insane. You're going to become really ill. And it's kind of the same, with our partners. And I had someone I was talking to today. It never, well, I'll say it this way. Um, how do I say this? I want to be very, very confidential. His spouse had some things going on that could have been medically related. And he never said to her, not once, I had this kind of sex with these women, and maybe some of what you're struggling with has to do with what I've done. Never once did he say that to her. And this concerns me, as Tammy said, there are a lot of diseases that I don't know I have as a man, but they will show up in a woman. I looked at the numbers, Tammy, because I wanted to see how many women start with HPV, with human
Mm,
papillomavirus, and end
hmm.
up with cervical cancer. And it's something like 45,000 women a year
Wow.
go from having
Wow.
HPV. This is why there's a vaccine for young women, and
Yeah.
yet to
Yeah.
keep that from happening. And by the way, if you have HPV, human papillomavirus, even if you don't have cervical cancer, you can have your kids can have birth defects. There could be issues around. They can. I think I just heard about early preemies having to do with
Mm.
HPV. So but you might never know you have it. So yeah, I really agree with Tam. I can't say this strongly enough. Go get STD tested. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more humiliating than walking into your doctor's office. If you have to go to a free clinic, go to a free clinic, whatever it takes for you to do this. Protect yourself. There's a lot of
And,
notes.
well, and
Go
I'm
ahead,
gonna
Tammy.
I'm gonna say, don't be humiliated. Be empowered. I am taking care of me, and so I would like you to shift from, oh, I'm so humiliated, to,
Right.
like, I'm just doing this of, like, I need to take care of me. And he lies, and so whatever he said, I can't trust it. So I am the only one that can value my health, and so I'm going to take care of me, regardless. So I would hope that it wouldn't be the humiliation. It would be, I'm just taking care of me.
And we have denial too as addicts, which is it was just oral sex. So you
Oh
can't get
yeah.
a disease like that. Or, it was just manual. Well, let me tell you, you can get diseases from all kinds of things. So I think we tend to think as addicts, well, unless it's vaginal or anal sex without a condom, I can't get or give anything. And that's just not true. That is denial. So what do we got, Tammy?
Okay. The next one. How do you view the difference between porn addiction and sex addiction? And do you think porn addicts should take the same steps to recover as sex addicts? As a gratefully recovering porn addict for almost a year, I'm wondering which direction to take my recovery going forward.
Well, there's a reason why there are separate programs for porn addicts, like their own 12-step programs. SAPP? I don't remember what the
Well, sex, SPAA,
right,
PAA. I mean,
right.
we've got a whole
So
list of them. So yeah.
just like there are marijuana addicts,
Hmm.
really they're drug addicts, but they go to marijuana meetings, just like there are cocaine addicts meetings, even though they're drug addicts. Everyone who has these kinds of issues really needs to be with their own cohort, with people who have a similar problem. What I have seen in sex addicts meetings is when a porn addict goes regularly, they hear stories about, I'm seeing sex workers, I'm having affairs, I'm looking at, I'm hitting on women or men every day. And some of the porn addicts haven't had sex in years. They're sitting in their room. And by the way, for a man, I think it's one of the most humiliating forms of sex addiction, which is porn addiction, sitting in your room alone for 5 hours a day. But the point is that, and I'm going to say this bluntly, there are porn addicts who wish that they were out there doing what those sex addicts are doing. Some of the sex addicts talk about, having 3 affairs, is appealing to them because all they do is sit in front of the computer. So number one is, I do think having your own space, just like there's meetings for alcoholics and there's meeting for different people with different issues. I do absolutely go to porn addicts. The other thing is that we teach a course called Porn Addiction 101. And guess what? We also teach a course called Sex Addiction 101. I wrote a book called Sex Addiction 101. I'm in the process of writing a book called Porn Addiction 101. There are differences on a whole variety of levels that lead to us needing separate instruction, separate focus. And yeah, so if you're a porn addict who also happens to have affairs, if you're a porn addict who often happens, 90% of your behavior is porn, but you happen to go out and do a whole bunch of other things, then maybe you really need to look at sex addictions meetings or do both. So porn addiction, and let me say one more thing about it. I always thought, when in the beginning of all of this, the porn stuff was, of course a porn addict is a sex addict because porn is sex. But now I realize it's sex with me alone. And that is a very different set of circumstances than sex with other people. So, Tammy, do you have any thoughts about that?
I put in the chat. So on Seeking Integrity, there's a work group tab, and you'll see the two different ones. And we used to do sex addiction and porn addiction together, but we had some of the porn addicts doing the "I'm not that bad because I didn't,"
Right.
and so we went, here's a group just for you. So if it is all online, then that can be a better fit. And then the 12 step I put in the chat as well on our website. There's a link to the various 12 steps, and you'll see PA, PAA, SPAA, SCA, like all of them. So you can find a fit. But just like sex addiction isn't about sex, porn addiction isn't about porn, alcoholism isn't about alcohol. So it's stop the problematic behaviors, cognitive behavioral therapy, and address the underlying issue. So the recovery process going forward, we have inner child work groups, we've got attachment wounds work groups. We've got lots of things. Why men struggle to love. There's options to continue the journey, but the first is stop the problematic behavior. You got a year in, great, and then now you can start working on, well, what is it? Why do I want to run off and use porn instead of connecting with a real person? Right. That's an interesting. Okay, now I'm going to look at that. I'm feeling uncomfortable. What is that telling me? I need to go do something healthy.
And even more than sex addiction, porn is a disease of isolation. When I talk to someone, there are people who get drunk at parties and get drunk around other people, and then there are people who drink alone. And the drinking is the same, but what it means to them and what they're doing and where it comes from can be very different things. I did want to speak to this question after you ask the next one, because they're related.
Okay. So it's been 8 months since D-Day, and my porn addict has not acknowledged any wrongdoing, won't talk about it, and acts like nothing is wrong. What advice would you give me to do in this type of situation?
So first of all, I have had spouses say, well, he's using porn or she's using porn 5 days a week, but that's not the problem. I mean, at least they're staying home. They're not with other people. Or they say, I don't understand why we're not having sex. Oh, they're looking at all this porn. Well, now I get it. I'm upset about that, whatever. But I think sometimes it's hard for spouses to see that the problem is just as profound on some level as if they were with other people, because they're unavailable for the relationship, they're isolating, they're lying, all of that other stuff. So it is also easy for men in particular to say, oh, it's just porn. And men look at porn, and I'm a guy and I look at porn occasionally, and what's the big deal? And why does it bother you so much? And you're being too conservative, or you're trying to control my sexuality. And here is the answer, my best shot, which is, if your spouse is really uncomfortable with your porn use and you think, well, I should be able to defend it because they're this and they're that and porn isn't such a big deal, you're missing the point. The point is your spouse is upset. The point is that they don't like something you're doing and it makes them uncomfortable. Why is the porn more important than understanding what is upsetting your spouse, meeting your spouse's needs, and trying to make things better? There are a lot of things in my marriage that I don't want to do, trust me, or I wish I didn't have to do. But what's important to me is the relationship. And as Tammy knows from some of our podcasts, and I hope you listen to lots of them because over 1 million people do, Sex, Love, and Addiction is the name of the podcast. One of our folks said, when I make any decision in my life, the best way for me to make that decision is it good for us as a couple? Not is it good for me? So if I was presented with my spouse not liking my porn use, I wouldn't think, well, how can I get to continue doing it and push them away, until I would think, what is best for our relationship? Is it best that I look at this and we talk about this and we make these decisions together? Or is it best that I just push them off and get what I want? And I think that's a great lesson for addicts in recovery, is looking at the world through the lens of our relationship and not simply what I want, because addicts are all about I. So this is my answer to your question is, what's wrong here is that he's not listening to you. What's wrong here is he doesn't seem to give a crap what you think or what you feel. And he's already seen that this is upsetting to you. He's already had to expose and acknowledge this. Does he not care about you? Forget the porn. Does he think that he could keep getting away with it and you're not going to take an action? Does he think that you are just going to not stand your ground and be a pushover? I don't know. But what I'm most concerned about here is why doesn't he understand that this is hurting you and that this is leaving you feel like you are trapped? Um, I don't quite understand uh, what he's thinking because he's protecting the porn over you and the relationship. And that, by the way, I would say that to him. It's really sad to me that you make a decision every single day that the porn is more important and fighting back with me about the porn is more important than our relationship. Because if you were concerned about relationship, we'd really sit down and talk about this. So, do you want to keep going or did you want to add something?
So I want to add something to this, but so we're going to come back to the 519, I promise, but we're going to go to the 521 because it tags into what I was going to say, because it says, good evening. I love your two-part interview with Dr. Stan Tech and his new book, In Each Other's Arms. Can this be applied to a relationship with addiction? At what point? I want your opinion. Can this stuff even be worked on? But before you start answering that, because I haven't heard it yet, because I was waiting for both parts. No, I wasn't going to listen to part one and wait. I wanted to both. Now I will. Okay, but going back to the one you were talking about, because you know, I was going to reference the one you did with Dr. Stan a while back, which is I reference that all the time. Yeah, but it's one of those. This is what I vision for our relationship, a healthy relationship. You know, if he also wants that, then what is he willing to do to get there? Because otherwise, that's really important information for you to have. That, you know, because you can paddle like crazy, you know, and you're never going to get the boat going in the right direction because he's over there just doing nothing, you know. So the podcasts are all on our website. You'll find them. You can always email me. I put my email in the chat. So please answer this one about Dr. Stan, and then we'll go to the one right ahead of it. Okay.
Well, the book, and I actually talked about this in the podcast. Now, sometimes they edit things out, so I don't know. But one of the things that we talked about, so the book is called In Each Other's Care, and it has to do with couples resolving conflict. It is really about how do we come together and figure out how to work together to resolve the conflict rather than being you said, I said, you know, whatever that is. And again, to understand how important it is to come to terms with each other rather than, you know, being on the opposite sides of the fence. And he does an amazing job of talking about this. But I did ask him, I said, well, can you come to the methods and the ways that this book you wrote talks to, and I think beautifully, resolving conflict if you're in the middle of some partner who's just been betrayed? And the answer is, he said, no. And I think that we would often say there is a crisis and there is no room, as we say, and I think this is important, don't go to couples therapy in the beginning. In the beginning, you have nothing to say to each other except, you ruined my life. How could you do this to me? And on the other side, it's, I'm so sorry. I wish you'd forgive me. I didn't mean it. And that neither of you know enough or have enough support or knowledge to be able to turn to each other. And couples, you know, this is one of the tragedies of this particular disorder, is that I'm used to turning to my spouse. They're the first person I turn to when I'm struggling. I turn to my husband. I turn to my wife. I turn to my partner. I said, boy, what happened at work today? Or I'm worried about this or worried about that. We are each other's primary support. And now you cannot turn to each other for support because they're the person that hurt you or you're the one who hurt them. So no, this isn't the time to look at each other and see how we can improve the relationship. You need to be out of crisis and you need to both have a solid foundation of support for yourselves. And then you can turn in and look at the problem. So yes, this can be applied to a problem with addiction, but not in the beginning. And Dr. Tackman was very, very fair about that. I guess he could have sold more books if he said yes, but he aligns with us in that if there's a crisis, these kind of methods are not going to be useful because you're too much at the edge of real trauma, and you can't work in this way. So, Tammy,
thank you.
other?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna listen to the podcast tomorrow. Okay, go one up now. Betrayed partner here. We are 13 years post discovery. The addictive behavior is supposedly gone. I cannot know what he does, but healthy emotional and physical intimacy is not happening. I am frustrated as I feel I'm the one who wants this, is seeking books, podcasts, etc. I feel like I am in constant boundary establishing mode as he is objectifying me, etc. I was triggered this past week and want to give up as it seems he does not care about healing completely. Is it time to quit? Or me seeking help and him not is acceptable 13 years in?
Well, I'm going to ask Tammy for some of this, but if he has really been working on this for 13 years, or even if he's struggling with his recovery, but he's still going to meetings, he's still going to therapy, still acknowledging the problem, then something is wrong in your relationship. You know, this isn't just about somebody who's acting out or struggling with it. Now, what is he doing? This is what Tammy would say. Is he going to 12-step meetings? Is he going to therapy? And, you know, I say this when I do the consultations, it comes up all the time. Who scheduled this consultation? The person who was cheated on. Who found the podcast that I do? The person who was cheated on. Who bought the book? The person who was cheated on. And, you know, I do say to the addict, like, so you're not taking any responsibility for this. You're letting your spouse fill in the blanks to help you fix the problem. And that does not feel to me like someone who loves me and is concerned about me and who's putting me first. And the objectifying me, I often do talk to spouses who feel like they are demanded of for sex every day or constantly. It doesn't matter whether they're not feeling well or whatever they're going through. And this is, you know, in part, us addicts, for some of us, if we're not constantly having sex with you, we don't feel loved, we don't feel validated, we don't feel whatever we don't feel. And so we're asking and demanding that of you all the time. If you know what we do out there, you may be saying, well, I guess I have to, because if I don't, then maybe we'll go back out there again. But feeling objectified by the person who loves you is a problem. Feeling engaged and understood and having mutual compassion, that's what leads to healthy sexuality. But I don't want somebody who I've been with all these years to be, you know, watching me shower, and, you know, just some of it feels really icky. I don't know. So I don't know what he's doing to recover. If he's really working on this, therapy, meetings, going to groups, you know, whatever that is, then I would feel like something's happening. But I don't know if anything is happening. What I do know is you seem to be doing a lot of work, and it doesn't sound like he is. And I'll tell you a little therapy trick. We're taught this in therapy school. Never work harder than your client. You know, that you have to be doing the work. I can't just sit here and ask you questions and demand and tell you. You actually have to do it. And so this is sort of like that to the spouses. You know, never do more work than the addict is. And if you're handing them the books and you're guiding them and you're bringing them and then, you know, I'm not sure. I don't feel good about this relationship. I guess that's what I wanted to say. Tammy, do you want to comment?
Yeah, well, I was like, I would caught I am in constant boundary establishing. And I'm like, your boundaries are your boundaries. Like those should be established. And so like, they're not punishment against him. It's like, you know, here's my boundary. If you are able to meet this, great. Otherwise, you know, otherwise the gap is going to get bigger for the two of us, you know. But you know, and you said he's not acting out. And I really kind of wonder, because like if he's objectifying and things like this, to me, this feels I wonder if he, you know, is really not acting out. He's, you know, he's at least, we talked about the circles, he's at least in the middle circle, because this is, you know, objectifying, you know, would not be acceptable behavior for an outer circle behavior. So as far as you, I work with lots of people, but like to me, you know, when it's time, like when like your head may be saying I should go, but your heart is not there yet. When your head and heart are aligned, you know, then you'll know if it's time to go. And one more thing, we have a moving on alone betrayed partner drop-in group on Thursdays. It is for people who have moved on, are considering moving on, or have been moved on from, so to speak, you know, have been left. And so it's betrayed partners, but it's that specific category, you know, for, you know, we're not working on, I'm not wholeheartedly working on, you know, staying in the relationship or, you know, trying to work this out. I'm considering leaving. So that might be useful for you as well. Again, free drop-in group. So
Let's answer the last one and then we need to stop. Let's just do
okay.
one more.
Husband in recovery for 5 years. Sees a CSAT once or twice a month, SA meetings twice a week, all online. He goes in the lower level behind closed and locked doors for these meetings. I think he is looking at porn. I also believe he is sexting and bypassing controls on our Wi-Fi. The last time I asked him if he was looking at porn, he laughed and said no. I felt totally dismissed. I see no progress in 5 years in that he does not talk with me about his addiction, his recovery, or anything. He acts as if it just doesn't exist. I've been with him for 30 years, but I just don't know if I can keep this up.
Well, number one, this is the type of situation where someone does go to treatment. And I see a lot of men in their 50s and 60s, and they've betrayed 30-year relationships. And that's very different than something that's been going on for 3 years, or, 30 years is a long time to suddenly find out and be devastated. I did want to give a visual, which is, can you see these little
Hold it right.
things?
Yeah, right there. Hold it in front of you.
And then when you open them up, see there's little earbuds in
Yeah.
there. So I could go to a meeting and I could sit and talk to these people without your hearing what they have to say. And you might hear what I have to say, but that's not a big deal. Why I would say, I'm not okay with your going, this is a boundary. I'm not okay with you going to these meetings in the dark by yourself. I want to see that you're doing them. I want to see that it is a meeting. I don't have to look at these people, talk to these people. I know it's confidential, but when I walk by, I want to see that they're sitting in a circle, they're up in squares, and you're a bunch of guys who are talking to each other, whatever that is, because I don't believe you. And by the way, what do I say? If you're questioning something like this, it's probably true, because you would feel, look, I'm an addict. If I was going to meetings, I would brag about it. I'd be like, oh, I'm going to 3 meetings a week because I'd want a gold star, because we want to be validated for everything. So his dismissing, his devaluing, his hiding, these would be boundaries. These would be the kind of boundaries that I would say this needs to change. And I do sense what I feel is a little bit of you're being victimized here. It's kind of like, I'm going to do what I want and you're just going to have to put up with it. And that's the point of boundaries, is you can say, I am not okay with this for me. And I don't care what you do, but if you want to be around me and you want to be with me and you want my, happiness and joy in our relationship, then you've got to do these things. Doesn't mean he has to do them, but your boundary is if you're going to be closer to me, or if we're going to stay together, whatever it is, I need to see you doing them. And he may do them or not, but that's giving you a really good message if he decides I'm just going to do what I want. Yeah. So Tammy, it's a pleasure.
Yes. Yeah. I
Good
just
to
want to
see
tag
you.
on the one quick thing, because Dr. Rob told me about a book, You Can't Lie to Me. And I swear in the book, there was something about, because you said the last time I asked, he laughed and said no, but that laughing and saying no, I swear that's in the You Can't Lie to Me book. I'm going to have to go back and look it up. But
So this is a book by a forensic psychologist who works with the courts, and she knows she doesn't need a polygraph. There are ways that you can know by the way someone acts if they're lying. And I'll give you an example. Tammy may say, did you do this? And if I say, I have never done this, absolutely not, there's no way, I'm probably lying. The person who is so adamant, so, as opposed to, gee, Tammy, I'm not doing that, but I'm real sorry that you worry or think, that's a very different answer. So when someone is absolutely definitive and almost acts like they're offended at the question, so she has a whole, boy, I bet you're going to go out and buy this book, spouses. There's a whole way of noticing that someone might not be truthful. And one of the ones is what Tammy said, which is to kind of dismiss in a kind of joking, oh, are you kidding me? Like it's not a good sign for that what he's doing. And yeah, so this just doesn't feel, I said this is I get a sense of being profoundly disrespected, and rather than looking to him for answers, I think you have to set some boundaries and say, what am I willing to accept and what am I not willing to accept? And by the way, there's nothing wrong with saying you can look at porn all day, I don't care. There's nothing wrong with saying you can sleep around with other people. If that's what you're okay with, that's okay. But if you're not, then you have boundaries to set that need to be maintained. So
for
Tammy,
your
nice to see
safety.
you.
Great to see you. Thanks everybody for the
Okay.
questions. You can always reach out. We've got lots of stuff. And a reminder, the couples healing from betrayal, we only offer that work group twice a year. It starts on Thursday, September 14th. So,
And this is for
so
both partners to sit
it
in?
is. It's the only one that we have
Right,
for couples. And Dr. Susie
right,
LeBrock, who we think is fantastic,
right.
facilitates that. She does a great job. Again, only offered twice a year. So join it if you haven't considered it yet. It could be a great option. Thank you. Bye, Dr.
You
Rob.
guys.